Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Viktor Frankl. What many people are afraid of is being alone. This fear is so great that they end up never discovering who they really are. Human beings by nature like to be with other people and are not designed to endure extreme situations of isolation. If we stay alone for too long, our minds can begin to weaken, which can lead us to feel very sad or even lose control of our thoughts. Long ago, practices such as isolation in prisons and exile were used because people already understood how deeply loneliness can affect human beings. Today, however, our fear is not limited to extreme forms of loneliness. Many people are even afraid of spending short periods of time alone. They become so afraid that at any minute of feeling this way, they open up social media to try to feel less alone. In this video, we'll explore why this fear happens, how it can damage our relationships, and, at the same time, discover the benefits of overcoming this fear. We'll also learn how to find comfort in moments of loneliness. Some thinkers believe that the fear of being alone is actually a fear of facing oneself. In our daily lives, we are always busy with work, studies, and other activities. We spend a lot of time around other people, and this causes our most frightening thoughts and feelings to remain hidden. But when we withdraw from socializing with others, these thoughts come to the surface and demand attention. The philosopher Nietzsche wrote that when someone spends too much time alone, they can end up facing a dark part of themselves, something he called the inner beast. This can be very difficult, and loneliness can become a great burden, a kind of curse. Some people manage to face this crisis, using a lot of strength and courage to tame and understand this dark part of themselves. But for many others, this confrontation can be devastating. Because of this, Nietzsche felt that loneliness was not something that everyone should experience. He believed that not everyone is ready or prepared to face the more difficult side of themselves, and that some people could suffer greatly from it. Even so, it's important to understand loneliness and learn to use it as a tool to grow and get to know yourself better. When loneliness seems unbearable, many people look for others to cling to, trying to ensure that they never feel alone. Some do this because they want to find themselves, while others do it because they want to lose themselves. This bad love for themselves makes loneliness feel like a prison. People who lose themselves in others may even be saved from loneliness for a while, but they end up becoming weak versions of who they could be. To reach our true potential, we need to seek something greater, what psychologist Abraham Maslow called higher needs, or goal needs. These include things like the search for truth, beauty, and goodness. However, as Ernest Becker explained in his book The Denial of Death, these needs cannot be completely met by other people. He wrote, "It is impossible to draw blood from a stone or spirituality from a being that is only physical." When we try to fulfill all these needs only through our relationships, we end up idealizing our partner too much. This makes us very dependent on that person for our self-esteem and to know who we are. As Becker put it, if we turn our partner into God, they can easily become a devil. This is because by looking for an ideal love and making it solely responsible for deciding what is good or bad about us, we stop being ourselves. We just become a reflection of the other person. It's like children who follow all the family's orders and, as a result, lose their own identity. This dependence, whether on the one who leads or the one who follows in the relationship, often leads to resentment, even if we don't realize it. To avoid falling into relationships based on dependency, we need to learn something important: the capacity to be alone. This is what psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott taught us in the 20th century. When we are afraid of being alone, we start to depend on other people. Because of this, we create a false self, a version of ourselves that is shaped only to please others. We become so afraid of being abandoned that we stop being authentic and start acting according to what we think others want from us. But Winnicott believed that by developing the ability to be alone, we can break down this false self. It is in these moments of solitude that we can reconnect with our true feelings and needs, discovering who we really are. In this way, we become freer and more confident to live authentically. You were born alone, and you will die alone. So why be afraid of being alone? Nowadays, many people have forgotten how good solitude can be. Instead, without realizing it, they follow something called object relations theory. This theory has two main ideas. The first is that our personality can only really grow when we have close relationships with other people. The second is that these relationships are the most important thing, or even the only thing that gives our lives meaning. For example, social networks have a dark side that we often ignore. They end up becoming a space for chatter, gossip, fake news, lies, and even hatred. All of this goes against what really makes us grow: solitude. Being alone, in silence, perhaps with background music or meditating, is a powerful form of psychic and spiritual growth, a true exercise in asceticism. That's why it's important to recognize how addictive networks can be and to reflect on the impact they have on our lives. Perhaps it's time to find a balance and allow ourselves to disconnect. A great proponent of this theory, John Bowlby, wrote in his famous work, Attachment and Loss, "Having close ties with other people is the center around which one's life revolves, not only as a baby or child, but also during adolescence, adulthood, and even old age." But if taken to the extreme, this idea can suggest that life only has meaning when we are with other people. This ignores something very important: the fact that we can find meaning in growing and developing as individuals. This personal growth can be greatly stimulated by solitude, especially when we use this time to create something or work on something that demands our full attention. Psychiatrist Anthony Storr, in his book Solitude, A Return to the Self, argues that when we dedicate ourselves to creative work, we are not only organizing and shaping that work, but also bringing order and balance to our mind. He showed that maturing and developing can often happen when we are alone, more than people realize. Inventors and creators who prefer to be alone, for example, manage to discover who they really are and feel fulfilled by interacting with their work, rather than relying on constant interactions with other people. It is this ability to fulfill oneself by creating something meaningful that led the Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky to say, "Solitude of the mind is as important as food is to the body." When we are alone, we have the chance to shape our personality away from the pressure that other people can put on us. This helps us maintain our independence in the relationships we cultivate, ensuring that, unlike many people today, we don't lose our identity when relating to others. Solitude, therefore, can be a valuable space to grow, create, and discover who we really are. Even as we learn to enjoy time alone, we need to remember that solitude can also be dangerous. That's why Nietzsche wrote, "There is nothing more dangerous than solitude." But we can become stronger to face these dangers if we understand that the benefits of solitude are linked to these same challenges. This means that, in order to enjoy all the good that solitude can offer us, we need to accept it voluntarily and face the difficult feelings that can arise within us. Only by facing this inner darkness can we discover the true benefits of being alone. And perhaps, with time, we can achieve the rare confidence of someone who has truly become their own master. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke also spoke about this. He said that we shouldn't be confused or discouraged by loneliness just because we sometimes feel like running away from it. We know little, but we must trust that what is difficult is a certainty that will never leave us. In other words, it's good to be alone precisely because solitude is difficult. And if something is difficult, that's all the more reason to try to face it. Difficulty can be a sign that we are on the right path to grow and become stronger.